Alright, so today guys, we are talking about the objection relating to people asking to see what we've done for people in the past. The discussion we had today implied that we're trying to say we can do better. I challenge the planners and existing in the room today that we're not trying to say that we can give better investment results, we can do better outcomes. That's not what we're trying to do, because we can't physically promise anything. We can't physically say we are going to get you the best return, because that's going to land us in jail. And sometimes we can't. Step one, what we're trying to understand and establish is that the client is not doing the right things by themselves. The calculator is a prime example of how we can demonstrate that. When you use a calculator to indicate exactly how much money the client has put in super over that period of time and what the average return has been, you will find that 9 times out of 10 it will be unfavorable. When it is unfavorable, Mr. and Mrs. Client, when I've done this calculation, which is an accurate calculation by the way guys, it has shown that despite the fact you have put in on average X dollars, you have got an outcome of X dollars, that means your net rate of return should be XYZ%. You've told me, Mr. and Mrs. Client, that you wish to retire by the age of, in another 15 years time. At that time, Mr. and Mrs. Client, the value of your super balance will be XYZ. The problem with that, Mr. and Mrs. Client, is you'll be falling substantially short of where you intend to be. Therefore, that sum is not adequate. So my question, Mrs. and Mrs. Client, is not, can I do better? Where's this instant where I've done better in the past? The question is, Mr. and Mrs. Client, what other choice do you really have? Based on your existing results, you have got no capacity to outdo what you need. Albert Einstein's definition of insanity, Mr. and Mrs. Client, is doing the same thing expecting a different result. You will not be on track towards retirement. When you're doing that calculation, instead of them saying, I want to see what you can do, otherwise, Mr. and Mrs. Client, everything is different. There are no two clients the same, there are no two strategies the same, so anything I'm going to show you is going to be not even relevant to your case. My question for you is, I've been here for 2 hours, and 2 hours I've found X, Y, Z wrong with this situation. Imagine what I can do with a year. Now, the gamble here is, do you believe I have the capacity to do a 1% better than your non-educated approach and generic approach to investment? Based on what I've done this last hour. Yes or no? Yes. So Mr. and Mrs. Client, the gamble here is, if I don't do my job, you charge me $3.5 grand and I'm not getting towards that goal you're after, you'll have figures to keep me accountable by. And if I can at least demonstrate that 1%, then you'll make that money back in 4 years, what the investment just on 1%. But with that 1%, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I have got you that 1% for the rest of your life, because the structural changes I make today change everything potentially. But beyond that, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you're just talking about investment. When we did an assessment of how long it's going to take off your mortgage, you said you'll be 29 years from now. In 29 years right now, Mr. Client, you'd be retired for 10 years. So how is that going to work? Yes, investments are important, but Mr. and Mrs. Client, budget. The opportunity to structure assets so you're paying less in tax, that will help you to pay off your mortgage sooner. By knowing which port you're sailing to, you know exactly which wind is favorable. We're here to supply you with that wind, but you have to be blown in the right direction, Mr. and Mrs. Client. So yes, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we're not going to compare you side by side for what I've done for somebody else, but these figures show me 100% you have no chance of retiring in 15 years if you have a 30-year period in which to pay off your mortgage. You have no chance of getting towards your superannuation balance. So Mr. and Mrs. Client, this super SOA statement you're seeing is not relevant, and it's concerning that you feel it is. Beyond that, Mr. and Mrs. Client, children's education, all these things, all these goals you have right now aren't being addressed right now. They're not. guys, the key to this is you've now done the calculator for superannuation. You've now done the insurance calculator. You have a snapshot of what chance they have to retire based on their existing situation. So Mr. and Mrs. Client, what I've done for someone else is no indication of what I'm going to do for you. That's the first point. But what's been happening to you for the last 10 years is an indication of where you're going to be for the next 10 years if you don't make a change. Do you agree with that, Mr. and Mrs. Client? So what's the risk here? Pause. Shut the fuck up. Wait for them to come back to it. You've done the figures, therefore you can overcome the objections. You've done the figures, therefore you can very comfortably overcome the objections. Now the other objection we had to deal with, which one of the guys in the room pointed out, very good objection, was what if these guys are high net worth individuals with lots of money and they decide that they don't fucking need their superannuation. They say, I've got all these properties, when I retire, I'm gonna go do my, I'm gonna live off my properties. Do the fucking breakdown. How much does a house cost in Sydney? $1 million. What's the average rental yield? 4.2% in Sydney. Do $1 million times 4.2, $420,000 to $42,000 a year. What's the interest rate? 3.99. So you're left with 1.3 or 1.4, whatever it is. 1.4 of $1 million is $14,000. Right? Minus your tax. Minus your tax, $14,000, Mr. and Mrs. Client. Your income is at $90,000, $100,000. Minus tax at 37.5. From your 14 grand, congratulations, you contributed to a third of that superannuation balance, of that investment balance. That third is now, that $14,000 is now down to $10,000. So Mr. and Mrs. Client, you've now got $10,000. That's 1%. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Client. You've just got a 1% return on your investment. And that's assuming that you got the mortgage. Now take away the mortgage, you got 40 grand a year, minus tax. Inflation's not going out the same way as everything else is, as well as your expenses are. So you got 40 grand a year of $1 million investment. Assuming you got 4.2%. That's more Brisbane numbers than Sydney numbers. So Mr. and Mrs. Client, do we get rid of your properties? No. But the one thing about investment clients, Mr. and Mrs. Client, is all they do is think about how to make money. How many people think about what they do when they actually do make the money? Mr. and Mrs. Client, I've seen people who make $1 million a year and are, as good civil citizens, contribute $500,000 to the government every year. Because they haven't prepared themselves to make money. They've only made the money. Mr. and Mrs. Client, there's a reason why people use financial planners. And there's a reason why people use superannuation. And Mr. and Mrs. Client, what do you know about superannuation? Use the 4-box diagram at this point to demonstrate what is superannuation to them. Right? Now that last thing that was put on the WhatsApp group, the last year's rate of return was 10.12%. Over 3 years was 12.64%. Over 3 years it's been 10%. That's the market index rate. So Mike was asking me, he came up against the guy who had a 10% return and said, hey, he demonstrated 3 fucking statements that said 10% each. Awesome. Still do the fucking calculation, because what you're going to find is 3 good years are easy to find in 20. But how'd they go over 20 years? Still do the calculation. And if the guy's convinced they got 10% each year, do the calculation, go, Mr. and Mrs. Client, where is it? That's important. And then beyond that, if he's gloating about his 10%, go, Mr. and Mrs. Client, congratulations, bravo, you've got your 10%, but the market index rate was 12. So that means if you just put it in line with the ASX as an index fund, done fucking nothing else, no fees, no nothing, you would have done 12.5%. So what you're telling me is you're happy with a fund that underperforms by 2.5%. Mr. and Mrs. Client, I do want you as a client because you have a very small bar set for me. If all I have to do to make you happy is underperform the market by 2.5%, I assure you I can do this. Do you want somebody to underperform the market for you? I can give you a list of every single monkey you've ever seen who can do this for you. That's not my job. Rule 1, do the groundwork. Do the assessment, do the calculations, make sure you have ammunition going into your argument. Don't argue with idiots that will bring you to their level and beat you on experience. Make sure that you've done the groundwork, so when you're actually filing the objection, you've already done the work, and all you're doing is actually confirming what you've already said that they've already agreed to. Number 2, always calculate it out. The stories and the numbers. Very logical numbers. How much you're getting on rent? How much is the mortgage? How long have we had it for? What's the value of it? Are you going to sell? Oh, it's worth $10 million. Fantastic. Are you going to sell, Mr. and Mrs. Client? No, I'm not. Then what the fuck is that $10 million worth to me, Mr. and Mrs. Client? Get the actual picture. Do not, I repeat, do not take things on face value. Because when you're losing these clients, you're failing them. You're actually failing them. They need your help. They don't understand, 9 times out of 10, that these returns that they're talking about are subpar. They don't understand what a goal is. Mr. and Mrs. Client, congratulations, you've done 10 fucking %, awesome. But you have 10 grand in your fucking superannuation policy, that's $1,000. Not so impressive. Is this our focus? No, we have to reduce your tax. We have to structure your assets better. We have to make sure your kids go into education. What the fuck is that 10% if you can't eat? Map it out. Have your information handy. Be informed. Make sure your clients are informed. Don't let these clients live in ignorance. That's your job, to educate them, to help them. If you're not helping them, then what the fuck are you doing? Alright guys, hope this has helped.